Welcome to Ken's Corner Podcast, Season 4.
Hey everyone, this is Ken from Ken's Corner, and today I'm here with Howie Mooney. We don't have the same affiliates to our hockey teams, but I'm still happy to have you on here today, Howie. I know you're an Ottawa Senator. Maybe I'm going to call you a Lovinite because you did a bit of work
Well,
with them.
I should correct you right there, Ken, because
Okay.
I grew up in Ottawa, but when I was growing up, when I was a kid and into my 20s, even there was no team in Ottawa. So the closest team to us was the Montreal Canadiens. And so I grew up a fan of Jean Beliveau and Gump Worsley and the Habs. And I know that that might be sacrilege to a lot of people that are watching or listening to your show, but I mean that was just the fact at the time. And I grew up as a Habs fan. In '93, I was fortunate enough to be in the building when they won the cup. Uh, as a fan, I was there. I wasn't there covering it or anything like that, but we were up in standing room at the very top of the Forum. And back then, it was in June, and the Forum was not air conditioned, so it was hot up there. And thankfully, there was a man with some kind of beverages. We don't know what kind of beverages he had, but we kept buying them from him, and we kept ourselves, hydrated that way.
Hmm. You know what? I understand that fully. I had my oldest son actually grew up in Ottawa. So I spent I was living in Ottawa the year the Ottawa Senators came to town. And I remember, hey, this isn't going to be too bad. Laurie Boschman's playing for them.
That's
So,
right. And that
yeah.
very first game that the Senators played, I don't know if a lot of people remember, but the first game they played was against Montreal. Ottawa beat them that night in Ottawa. But that later that year, the Habs went on to win the Stanley Cup. So maybe that loss to Ottawa woke them up.
Yeah, it's quite possible. Montreal is going to be in quite the battle. You know what? I'm really happy and congratulations for your Ottawa Senators to make it back into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like it's going to be a real fun thing to watch again because I'm sure we all really enjoyed the Battle of Ontario of years ago.
It's been a long time. It's been too long.
Definitely. Let's talk about what what you did for the Ottawa Senators. And I mean, you've done other work too, like with Ottawa 67s, the Ottawa Lynx baseball team, the Ottawa Red Blacks. That's I
Yeah.
find this very interesting. Can you walk me through some of the work that you did for these clubs?
Well, when I was covering football in Ottawa, it was the Rough Riders still. But I mean, I go back to the early '90s. But it all started because of these. These are sports history calendars that I put together. I started putting them together in about '86, and they basically tell a story every given day, every date. There's a fact on there that I don't know if you can see it. It's
Yeah,
backwards
that's
on mine.
amazing.
Yeah, every date has a sports fact that has to do with Canada, and I started with that, and from there, I started to get noticed, and I got a guest hosting spot on a sports trivia show pre-internet in Ottawa, and I was on camera with the guy who is now the mayor of Ottawa, Mark Sutcliffe.
Oh yeah.
And it's so funny now. Mark is the mayor of Ottawa, and I'm sitting here on Ken's Corner, so we're both kind of famous.
Yeah,
But
there you go. That's really nice for you to say. Mark
well, from
Sutcliffe.
that point, sorry, go ahead.
My son has told me that Mark Sutcliffe is a great mayor for Ottawa, so I really appreciate you bringing that up.
He's one of the most intelligent people I think that I've ever worked with and known. A guy who, even back then, I mean, we're talking about very late '80s, early '90s. Mark had ambition. Mark had he had something up here, and he had a certain thing about him that he knew. I think he knew where he wanted to go and knew what he wanted to be back then. I think one day we were talking. It was about 1990, and he said something like, if there was a way to become the general manager of the Ottawa Rough Riders, you could write your ticket in this city. Well, he became more than general manager of the Ottawa Rough Riders. He's become the mayor, and he's
Yeah.
become basically a global citizen now.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sure he's finally wrote in that ticket and he can get into any game.
Oh yeah, yeah. But from the calendars, then I started hosting the trivia show, and it wasn't long before I was hosting full time with my brother, first in 91, and then my brother left the show after 91, 92, and then I started hosting it from that point forward till about 99. And from that gig hosting the sports trivia show, I started working covering the Rough Riders from 92 and 93. I hosted a Rough Riders magazine show on TV in Ottawa where I interviewed players or people in the front office. The owner, Lonnie Gleiberman, one night, and he told me, "Oh, we've done our homework on all these American teams. We figured we know what we're doing." That was back when they had the American Experiment, the Las Vegas Posse, et cetera, et cetera. Then I started doing Ottawa Lynx games from 93 to 99. And then hosting the 67s games, sometimes doing play-by-play, sometimes doing color on them as well, but mostly hosting from downstairs and sending things upstairs to the guys that were in the booth. But doing it, between period hosting, between period interviews and stuff like that.
I find that very intriguing.
Well, that was fun. I mean, it never ever felt like work. And we were there in 99, in the building when they won the Memorial Cup in Ottawa. It was really, really cool. But I mean, it goes back to when in 93, when I was in Montreal. I mean, I wasn't working, but I was there, and the Habs won the cup, and being in the building for that. And I was on the field. I was on the field in 95 when the Ottawa Lynx won the International League Championship, and I got to hold my microphone in scrums with the manager and get exclusive player interviews on the field and both in the clubhouse as well. And then at the end of it, I got McCarvered with beer and champagne. And it's a good thing I changed out of my suit and into the TV jacket, and I put my jeans on as well. So whatever they poured on me, I didn't care because I prepared for it. And also working the Senators beat for 4 years, covering them for TV. So, you remember, I mean, I'm sure you remember, I'm sure everybody remembers the post-game interviews in Ottawa where the guys are on the bikes, doing their cycling on their stationary bikes, and I'm holding a microphone in their faces after the game, asking them questions.
Daniel Alfredson days.
Daniel Alfredson. I remember Damian Rhodes, a former Leaf, was the goalie for the Senators when they beat the number one seed New Jersey Devils in 1998 in that first round series. Damian stood on his head, and what a nice person Damian Rhodes was. I'll never forget the generosity of his spirit and his time and everything else.
That's amazing. And I appreciate your thoughts on the Ottawa 67s. I actually did a bit of rinkside reporting for my local junior A team this year called the Stovall Spirit. And I worked with a fellow named Chris Mayberry, who actually did a bit of work with the Ottawa 67s a few years.
I don't remember Chris because I left Ottawa in the year 2000, but my time with the 67s was just incredible. It was wonderful. It was rewarding, and it never ever felt like work. It was like we'd get there, we get there. I was on the morning show too on the sports radio station at the time, and so I'd wake up at 3:30, go to work for the morning show, come home at whatever 10, 11 o'clock, have a nap, and then go to the arena for either for the Senators games or for the 67s games afterwards. And then there was a place across the street called the Philadelphia Restaurant, and it was kind of divided into two halves. And the TV people would go to one half. The 67s players that were of age to drink or whatever would go to the other half. And you get to sometimes you get to talk to guys and get to know them a little more than just what you see on the ice and what you see around the rink. And it was wonderful that way. There were guys that I got to know a little bit, before they became either went to university in Canada and played school hockey here, or went on to become pros. And it was wonderful, a wonderful time. And that's when you get to know the people that are, the true person that they are when they're kids like that. I remember Mark Bell, the first time I saw him, the first time I talked to him, he was 16 years old. He was about this wide, and he had the pimples on his face, and I'm thinking, how is this kid going to survive in the OHL with some of the bruisers that are out there, the 19-year-olds and some of the overagers that just want to pound people. but Mark became, a star in Ottawa. He played for Junior Team Canada, got drafted into the NHL, and he had a
his name.
career there, and good for him.
Yeah, I remember his name. Thank you for bringing that
Yeah.
up. Now, I don't know how much I know you've seen an Ottawa Senator game this year, but
Well, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, Ken. And I'm sorry I keep interrupting you, and I don't
that's
mean to.
okay.
But okay, I got the keys to my house in Ottawa April 1st, and what was not this Sunday that just passed. I think that was yesterday with the Masters, but the Sunday before, I got a call from my buddy, one of my buddies in Ottawa that week, and he said, "Howie, we've got a box for the Senators game against Columbus on Sunday. It was probably the 6th, I guess." And he says, "Do you want to go?" And I said, "Yeah." So I'm in Ottawa for 5 minutes, and they rushed me off to a Senators game in a box. So that was pretty cool.
That is amazing. My son is actually, well, he's in Thailand right now, but
Oh,
he's rushing home to witness Ottawa versus Toronto. His family have been season ticket holders, I guess, from season one. So they have four
wow.
down in the lower bowl and two up in the top. So
I my
I
yeah my
tried to get a ticket, but I don't know about that one.
it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. The city hasn't had playoff hockey in 7 years, and from what I see and what I understand and what I hear from people I know, there's a fever for it, and it's not cowbell.
Yeah. Tell me, well, first thing I want to know, how the heck are they going to keep all the Leaf fans out of that place and not be a Leaf home game?
You know what? I've got some really close friends in Ottawa that are diehard Leaf fans, and they've been diehard Leaf fans. I mean, I'm 65, and my buddies like they're the same age. We're all in our early to mid 60s,
Mhm.
and my buddy Dave Shea. Hi, Dave. Shout out to Dave. He was an Ottawa cop for a whole bunch of years, a detective sergeant, uh, 6'5", and
Oh,
he's a massive diehard Leaf fan. And it's so funny because he lives in Ottawa, and he'll go to the odd game wearing his Leafs jersey, and he gets people wanting to give him some trouble. And I mean, the guy's 6'5", he's massive. What are you talking to him bad for?
yeah. To be honest, the last time I did get tickets for my son, like if it's an Ottawa Toronto game, he's not coming with me to the game. He usually says, "Dad, here's the tickets. I know you're the kind of," he doesn't say it, but he knows I'm a bit rowdy at the Leaf games, especially when there are away games. But here's the tickets. I got business to do, and off he goes. So, so we've never witnessed a Toronto Ottawa game, but we've witnessed a few Buffalo games, I believe,
Oh
or
yeah.
something like that. Now, for someone like my son who hasn't been in the city for quite a long time and is excited to see some playoff hockey for the Senators, can you give us a quick analysis of what brought the Senators to the playoffs this year?
Well, the last couple of years, there have been expectations under DJ Smith, as you know, with Ottawa, Buffalo, and Detroit. And I look at this team. I look at teams like Ottawa as a half parabola, and a parabola goes like this. Right now, Detroit and Buffalo are at this part of the parabola down here. Ottawa is starting to go like this. They're not on this kind of trajectory yet, but they're like this. They're starting to go upward. Under DJ Smith, they started to go that way, but their play in their own end was just horrendous last year. I think what Travis Green has done with this Ottawa team, and he surprised me because I did not expect much from him as a coach. I have to admit, but what he's done with that team is he's instilled a defensive system. He's instilled responsibility defensively with everybody on that team, including the forwards, to come back and pick people up. And so I believe they're in the top 10 of defensive teams in the league this year.
Yeah,
But
they
as
definitely
I
are.
say, they're on that they haven't got to the upward part of the parabola yet, but they're getting close to that, making that turn and getting there. I don't know what they'll do in the first round. I'm assuming they're going to be playing Toronto, and so I'm curious. I'm curious as an onlooker to see what they do. I have so many friends because I've been in Toronto now for almost 25 years and worked in Toronto, and I'll tell you a little story about that. But I have so many friends in Toronto that I feel terribly when Toronto does poorly in the playoffs. I honestly do. But I tell you, in 2021, when they played Montreal, um, I was shocked. I'm a Montreal fan. They were down. Montreal was down 3-1 in that series to the Leafs. And I remember saying to a buddy of mine at work, Wally, all I want to see tonight is Game 5 was Montreal winning in Toronto, so they can go back to Montreal, and at least they can play in front of some people there. I think they were going to have 500 people. It was COVID, if you remember.
Yes.
And so I all I wanted was Montreal to win that Game 5 and send it back to Montreal, where they would inevitably lose. Well, they win Game 5, they win Game 6, and then they win Game 7. And I take 2 steps into work, and one of my buddies sees me and he yells, "F you, Mooney."
Well, as a Leaf fan, I'm well aware of all
I know. I
all
know.
our failures. But here's what I tell people that ask me this question: what makes this team different? I say, well, you can't judge a team on what they did last year, because this is a different team. This is coached by Craig Berube, different system. We got
Yeah.
new assistant coaches in Lane Lambert and Mark Savard.
Yeah.
We got a brand new defense. I think Riley and Benoit might be the only ones left over from the last year, maybe another
Yeah.
there somewhere, but we're pretty new there. And we have a shiny new 6'7" goalie named Anthony Stolar. So
Well, I
you
think
can only
too,
judge us on what we do this year.
but to add to that, Ken, I think that Brandon Carlo has given Morgan Riley
Oh,
a little bit of a help back there, because do you remember his best season, Riley's best season, was when he was paired with Ron Hainsey.
100%.
Hainsey was that stay-at-home defenseman that allowed Morgan Riley to kind of freewheel. And
Yeah.
with Brandon Carlo, he's very similar. I mean, that's the way I feel. He's similar to Ron Hainsey in that he allows Morgan Riley to do his thing, and he's able to shut guys down in the Toronto zone. That game on Saturday night, I was at my neighbor's house, and he's a diehard Leaf fan. He's wearing his Leaf jersey. We're sitting in his basement watching the game,
Yeah.
and he's got I think a brother-in-law there that also was a Hab fan, and he's wearing his Habs jersey, and I'm sitting there looking at the two of them. But I mean, the way Toronto shut down Montreal that night, outshot them. At one point, it was like, I think it was 33 to 7 or something, or 33 to 8.
Yeah,
It was,
it was. I think it finished 34-15. That was
yeah,
just a bit of a flurry late by Montreal. I believe they got that power play late and a little bit in overtime.
yeah,
Bumped that up a little bit. But yeah,
yeah,
you're so right. And that's traditionally in years past, that's a game the Leafs lose, because as a goalie, and I have a few friends that are goalies, and they say they want to be peppered to be in the game. Those games where they're only getting 8 shots, they fall asleep. So one of
yeah.
them might slip by them quite easily.
Were
So
you a goalie, Ken?
I was not a goalie. You
Okay.
know what? I didn't play ice hockey, but I played a lot of ball hockey in a lot of ball hockey leagues. So I got that much.
I was a goalie myself, and I have the fake hips now to just talk about it. I've had 2 hip replacements in the last 5 years, so
That's
uh,
amazing. I mean,
but
that sucks, but
well, no, but I mean, so many goalies that I know have had the same thing. They've had their hips replaced, over the last 10 years or so.
that makes sense. Well, I'm going to get to the point part. I'm sorry. I'm really interested in hearing about. You're a book author. You're not
Yeah,
just a broadcaster like Ken over here. You've actually written a couple of books, and the one I'm looking at right now is called "Crazy Days and Wild Nights." Was that your first? I think you have three
yeah,
different books. Can you walk us through all your books?
yeah. Crazy Days and Wild Nights was my first book. The way I started getting into writing again, because I wrote a book back in 1995 on the history of football in Ottawa. It's called Third and Long. You'll never find it anymore. It's totally out of print. But that was the first book that I wrote, and I was commissioned to write it. I think I was given 2 months to write it, which is not enough time to write a book on the history of a franchise that's 100 years old. But that was the first book I wrote. Did the calendars in the late 80s and early 90s. And then when COVID hit in January of 2021, I came home. I would come home and I'd sit at home, and I mean, I'd watch TV, I'd do my laundry, I'd go get my groceries, and that was about the extent of my activity.
Mhm.
And so I saw there was on Twitter, a friend of mine, Steve Warren in Ottawa. Steve and I did Lynx games in 1995 together. We shared play-by-play, and we shared color commentary. We'd go back and forth. And so I've known Steve for 30 years, but Steve put out a call for writers for his website, sensnationhockey.com. And if anybody wants to know about the Senators, just follow sensnationhockey.com. He's got a podcast as well. It's a great website to read anything you want to read about the Senators. It's not just a bunch of fluff pieces, but it's a lot of analysis as well. Anyway,
That's amazing.
so I messaged Steve, and I said, Steve, you're looking for writers. Do you want me to write something for you, and you can look at it and you can let me know if it's good enough for you for your site? And he says, Howie, you don't have to audition for me. Just write, and we'll put it up, and we'll see what happens. So I started writing for Steve, and before you knew it, my stuff was getting eyeballs on that website. And so then the guy in Toronto who we were doing our podcasts on his network, Fired Up Network, firedupnet.ca, he said, I want you to do that for me, for my website. And I said, okay. And what that allowed me to do was I didn't have to write about Ottawa-centric things. I didn't have to write about Senators-centric things. I could write about anything that I wanted. And so I started writing about sports history. And I started amassing pieces and putting, I decided I'll put a bunch together and see what I could do for a manuscript. And I put a manuscript together. I think it was, what was it? The end of 2021, beginning of 2022. And I started, sending it around, and I got crickets. I got nothing. Then I started, talking to a friend of mine that I played baseball against in the late 70s and early 80s when we were both, I was 18, 19, 20. It was in a men's league back then, and he was playing for one team and I was playing for another. We played against each other. We didn't know each other then, but Danny Gallagher has written a whole bunch of different books on the Montreal Expos. He's written books on other subjects as well.
Yeah.
So I started talking with Danny, and Danny kind of mentored me a little bit in how to put a good manuscript together. And then he put me in touch with a woman named Donna Deering. And Donna basically is kind of a jack of all trades in the publishing industry. And she helped me with with a lot of my the putting together of the first manuscript, and editing it, and then following it through and getting it right through to publication. And Danny's been a wonderful resource. Donna's been a great resource for me as well. And through those two, that's how the first book came out. And I mean, I still love some of the stories in that first book. There's a story about, it starts with a story about a day in 1965, a game between the San Francisco Giants and the LA Dodgers. And the Dodgers were, I think, in first place. The Giants were either tied for second or they were just in third. They were within a couple of games of each other. And the Sunday afternoon, the fourth game of the series, Juan Marichal is pitching for San Francisco, and Sandy Koufax is pitching for the Dodgers. And Marichal, sorry?
I said that's some big names.
Oh, yeah. And the first batter was Maury Wills, and Marichal brushed him back. And the catcher, Johnny Roseboro for the Dodgers, didn't like that. And he wanted Sandy Koufax to pitch inside at a couple of guys. And Koufax said, I'm not comfortable doing that. And he says, okay, leave it to me. And he says, when Marichal comes up, throw a curveball down or low and in, and I'll block it and I'll take care of it. So Koufax throws a curveball low and in, and Roseboro goes down to block it, and he ends up behind Marichal. And when he throws it back to Koufax, it goes right by Marichal's ear. And Marichal turns around to Roseboro and says, did you just hit me in the ear? And that started a big brawl. What ended up happening was Marichal hit Roseboro over the head with his bat. And Willie Mays played for the Giants then. He comes running out, and Roseboro was one of his friends. And he pulled Roseboro out of there. And he looks at Roseboro, and Roseboro's eye is like hanging out. And Mays says to Roseboro, Rosie, your eye is out. And he tries to push it back in with the palm of his hand and hold it there. Blood's flying all over the place. And if Willie Mays hadn't done that, that fight might still be going on today. I mean, they were just going at it just like
Yeah.
viciously and violently and obscenely. But it's that's the first chapter in that first book. And the second chapter is how the Flyers became the Broad Street Bullies, and I always love that story because it's about Ed Snyder not wanting his team to be pushed around by the evil St. Louis Blues, who were the bullies of that first expansion.
Oh.
There's a night in Ottawa at the Civic Center, an exhibition game between the Bruins and the St. Louis Blues, and the Blues had been using the Civic Center in Ottawa as their training camp facility. And that game against the Bruins, Ted Green was a defenseman for the Bruins. Wayne Mackey was a rookie trying to make the Blues and impress his coaches and his teammates. He dumps a puck into Green's corner, and he skates hard after it. Green goes after the puck. Mackey just pancakes him into the boards, into the glass. Green didn't like that, so he speared Mackey in the groin. Mackey swung his stick and hit. I think he hit him either in the hip or in the arm. Ted Green took a swing at Mackey and hit him in the shoulder, and then started to skate off to serve his 2 minutes that he got for the original spearing. And Mackey swung his stick back at Green, trying to hit him in the shoulder, but the heel of his stick caught Green in the temple, and it caused a depression fracture in the side of his head. And it's all about that whole night, the lead up to that night, the aftermath of that night, and everything else.
That's
A whole bunch
serious.
of different stories.
Very good. I'm very interested. I want to read them. Could you give us your titles of your other two books, and then
Sure.
maybe give me your links to where we can find them?
Absolutely. The first book is as we said, Crazy Days and Wild Nights. The second book is More Crazy Days and Wild Nights. The third book is called The Consequences of Chance. And this is the first book that I've written where I put a personal story. The last story is about my brother-in-law who passed away in 2023. And he was a massive Blue Jays fan and loved George Springer. And it's how my sister, after his celebration of life and everything, my sister and her kids and my other sister went to Toronto and ended up meeting George Springer's parents at the stadium in the hotel, the Skydome Hotel. And that it kind of came full circle in that story. And like I say, I don't usually write personal stories, but that's the one that somebody told me that they said things got pretty dusty in my house when I was reading that last chapter, and
Yeah.
I think it caused them to it get a little emotional, and I wanted to convey that emotion in that chapter, and this, of course, the chapter before that too, in The Consequences of Chance, is the chapter where John McDonald goes home because his father in 2010 he's playing for the Blue Jays, goes home to attend to his father who's dying of cancer. And before he dies, his dad says to John, hit your next home run for me. And we know John McDonald was not a home run hitter. And he says, Dad, I don't hit home runs. They're not easy to hit. I can't hit home runs. And he says, just hit your next home run for me. And so John McDonald gives the eulogy at his dad's funeral, goes back to Toronto. His teammates greet him, with open arms. And his dad was number 25. He was an umpire, and he wore number 25. They presented John with a 25 jersey, a Blue Jays jersey, signed by the whole team, to say, we're with you. He doesn't play on the Friday night against San Francisco. He doesn't play on the Saturday afternoon against San Francisco. But on the Sunday, he's called in as a pinch hitter in the ninth inning. And Toronto's down, I think, about 7-1 at that time. And lo and behold, what does he do? He hits a home run in that pitch hit appearance and puts it over the left field wall. And he's
I
running.
really remember that.
So many of us do. And he runs around the bases. He sits down in the dugout, and then he just breaks down and runs into the tunnel because he doesn't want anyone to see him crying.
Yeah.
Of course, in the clubhouse after the game, the reporters go straight to his stall, and they say, John, one of the guys says, John, what were you thinking when you were rounding the bases? And he says, that I won't be able to call my dad after the game. Sorry. Just
That's really sad. Thank you for bringing that up, though. Amazing. Could you give us the links to where we can find these amazing books?
If you look on Amazon, just go on Amazon. That's the best place to go if you've got Amazon Prime. Just go in on Amazon, type in Crazy Days and Wild Nights or The Consequences of Chance, and one of the books will come up. If one of the books comes up, you scroll down to the bottom and all the books are there, and you can order any one of them that you want. And I mean, that's the easiest way. If you've got Prime, the books will be at your house within a day or two.
And do you want to tell anyone that might want to look up what else you do in your life?
Well,
Do you
yeah,
want to
sure.
give any social media outlets?
Yeah, the sportslunatics.com. I'm a co-host on the Sports Lunatics show with my buddy Sean Levine, who used to be a producer at TSN 1050 in Toronto. Before that, he was at Sirius XM. Before that, he was with The Fan. He's done all kinds of work in Toronto. He's out in Halifax now, but we do our podcasts together via Zoom, like you and I are doing right now. And you can listen to episodes at thesportslunatics.com. You can listen to our podcasts wherever you find your podcasts. And you can read work that I've written there too on the sportslunatics.com. I just
That's
put a
awesome.
piece up. I just put a piece up there. I think it was yesterday or the day before, talking about a game at Le Colisée in Quebec City between the Hartford Whalers and Quebec Nordiques in 1989, where the Nordiques were losing. I think it was 5-0, and Peter Sidorkovich was getting a shutout. The fans were upset. They threw everything they could find on the ice, including all the rolls of toilet paper that were in the bathroom, and it was dubbed the Toilet Paper Bowl. And that's the story, the latest story that I've written, and it's up at thesportslunatics.com.
Well, that brought a smile to my face. I appreciate that on the way out the door, Howie. You know what? I'm just going to leave the floor open to you for the last couple of seconds here. And if you have any last words for us here on Ken's Corner.
I just want to say thank you, Ken, for inviting me on. I'm really happy to be here with you, and it's been wonderful talking with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. My name's Ken Judge, and I'm here on Ken's Corner with Howie Mooney. Thank you so much for your time today.